My brothers and sisters, as we have been hearing, Lent is a time for us to further respond in our lives to Jesus' call to be holy as the Father is holy, which is not to say that we have to have our act together, nor is it to say that we can't make mistakes. To be holy is to live in the presence of God in our lives and share that presence with others. It has nothing to do with having all our stuff together. It has nothing to do with avoiding mistakes. Jesus further asks us in this Lenten season, if this is the way to be holy, to look for just one, as I'm sure there are many, at least there are for me, to look for one aspect in our life which is not perfect, which is filled with mistakes, which is just not all together. And to find in that area of our life, just as it is, the presence of Jesus, dwelling there, living there, and to engage Jesus there. And when we are able to do that, we see how new life can well up into our lives. This can be done individually, but as we've seen in studies with all the social isolation and stuff, that living in isolation does not make us truly human, that we need to live with other people. So it is with faith. Living a relationship with God just in our own shell is not sufficient, for we need to live in faith with others. That's why we have a church. That's why we have a parish. That's the way Jesus set it up. So, not only do we look into our individual spiritual lives to see where things are not quite right and to discover the presence of God there, so it is on the level of a parish to look to where something is not quite right and to discover the presence of God there. My brothers and sisters, today's gospel speaks clearly to me that the merging of all of the parishes throughout the country, but particularly ours, because that's the one I'm most concerned about at this time, that the merging of parishes into another parish is a profound opportunity to grow in holiness. We see this exemplified by Jesus' encounter with the Samaritan woman at the well. You see how they come together in the beginning and things are like not right. There are certain codes that need to be observed, certain mores, certain codes of culture, and they're not being observed. First of all, we see this Samaritan woman coming to the well at noontime. Most women came to the well either in the morning or at night when it was cool. This woman, for some reason, came all alone. And there she encountered Jesus, a man and a Jew. Two problems right there. For as we hear in the gospel, Jews don't share anything with Samaritans, number one. So what's Jesus doing at a Samaritan well in the first place? And number two, women do not talk to men unless they are chaperoned. Another possible problem right there. And yet, they begin to talk, they begin to come together. And as this conversation moves back and forth between the woman and Jesus, and this back and forth happens 7 times, suggesting some kind of completeness in this encounter, that the woman discovers Jesus slowly and surely who he is. First, she sees him as a Jew and a man. Then she sees him as a prophet. Then she sees him as the Christ, the Savior of the world. And she goes and shares this experience with other Samaritans, other men. And the men then come to experience Jesus themselves, and Jesus then is invited into this Samaritan town. You see what's happening here? There are these 2 faiths coming together in Jesus Christ. We hear the debate in the gospel about the Samaritans who worship rightly on the mountain and the Jews who worship rightly on the temple in Jerusalem. And what does Jesus say? The way to worship rightly is in spirit and in truth. So the mountain doesn't really matter, nor does the temple in Jerusalem really matter. What really matters is coming together through our differences in spirit and in truth. This is possible, and this Lenten season invites us as parishes, as separate communities, because we are one parish now, but separate communities within the parish, to come together in spirit and in truth. Is it the way we would like it to be? Of course not. What thing in life is? But it is an opportunity to discover the presence of Christ in these differences, in this encounter, in this rubbing together. It is possible, as I said, because Jesus thirsts for it. As we see, this whole encounter at the well is a result of Jesus taking the first step and saying to the woman, "I thirst." Jesus could have said, "Oh, woman, Samaritan, you stay there and I'll be good." And she could have said the same thing. "Oh, man, Jew, I just want to get some water." Things could have been fine that way, couldn't they? But Jesus said, "I thirst." And the woman said, "Who are you to ask?" And Jesus said, "If you knew who was asking you, you would know that you would get more from me." And on the encounter goes. Jesus thirsts for all of us, both individually, but more as a people with differences, as a people with imperfections, as a people who do not have everything together or everything figured out, to come together in spirit and in truth, to discover spirit and truth in the everlasting waters that well up within us as individuals and as a parish community. The living waters of Jesus Christ is the flood that can cleanse our communities and to bring others to Christ in spirit and in truth.